Okay.
Okay.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I want to introduce Marjorie Power here. Marjorie is bringing to us today the launch of her new book of poetry, Sufficient Emptiness. It's Marjorie's fourth full-length poetry collection. Isn't that amazing? Fourth full-length. And she also has 7 chapbooks. Her poems have appeared in Southern Poetry Review, Poet Lore, Commonweal, and many other publications. Marjorie lives in Rochester, New York, near her son and his family, after living for 5 years in Denver. She once read at the book bar with Christine. That's how we met. Christine and Marjorie were both reading, and that's how we connected up. So it was a fortuitous poet's connection. Marjorie says in her book, "Because I've reached my 70s and moved more times than I'd ever expected, numerous landscapes have become familiar. I maintain friendships with people rooted in one place or another while feeling I connect with several. Home has become a spiritual place for me." And so now, without further ado, Marjorie, I'll hand it over to you. Share with us your poetry.
Thank you. There and here. I had a father who had no guns, nor did he use the word guns. Each autumn he'd tell me, "Don't play in the woods, wait until hunting season ends." Once before I was born, my father bought a house, our home on a hill at the edge of the woods. These days, at the edge of my life, there's a man who says, "You should write a poem about that." Not the home I mentioned or its autumns. He wants me to write about misplaced keys, seeing my dentist, vegetable stands by the roadside in Oregon. Good subjects, I reply. You need to write your own stuff. My childhood home was not for sale when my father purchased it. He knocked on a door and encountered the owner, gun in hand, a solitary senior who was soothed into listening, laying aside, letting go. The seller had never lived any place but there. The man who wants me to write his poems has lived in 2 places, there and here. There, everyone in town kept guns, but no one dreamt of shooting a neighbor. Here, it's populous and sprawly, with artists and other God only knows. But he likes me, or did until I mentioned how my father conducted business. 2 places called me divisive, stormed off to his cabinet to brood. I wish he'd unlock it and lift out his fear, stock by barrel by gleam. It's good to forge poems from the molten steel of fear. I go visit the man at the edge of the woods who has never lived any place but there. With apologies to Emily Dickinson. Hope is a nuisance if you ask me, which you probably won't. People rarely ask my opinion, so all us feathered things are better off. Hope has claws, tentacles, sharp little teeth. It scrounges in the soul, making a noise like yellow jackets caught between an exterior wall and a sheet of plasterboard. Hope may starve, but it doesn't quit. All winter, it circles a basement with a mason jar full of fireflies, releasing one for each upstairs light that fails. Small words. When a culture goes virtual, no individual word should maintain too many syllables. Small words get to have a big shine. They need no dimmer switch, cast no shadows. A perky little phrase makes people feel tall, sparks a starry-eyed state. Strangers unite, stripes become clear. Cantankerousness drops off the screen, leaving those who belong here to cantanker among roses without thorns, without color, without scent. Happy to, he said. I asked a favor of a man, a quick come and go, you understand. Bigger than a bread box? No. I hoped for a bit of his own just so. A bottled message for the tide, a trace of deep or maybe wide, a gleam upon a vacant shore, a crack of light beneath a door. He'd be happy to, he said. I hadn't known him long, so I was glad. Came a silence I can't diagnose. There'd been a time frame, an outermost. Now he clicks like on my Facebook posts. Writing back to a doom purist. That's DOOM, purist. I wouldn't say that you are wrong. Forests blaze, the blues turned gray. There is no earthly point in song when night does not give in to day. Forests blaze, the blues turn gray, floods gulp all, vast glaciers melt. Night does not give in to day, a poacher strokes his pelt. Floods gulp all, vast glaciers melt. Who am I to doubt the facts? A poacher strokes his pelt, our king fiddles with his axe. Who am I to doubt the facts? I stand silent at the wall of reason. Our king fiddles with his axe. The rough beast claims high season. I stand silent at the wall of reason. No room at the inn, no way back home. The rough beast claims high season as 15 minutes of fame begins to roam. So keep to this chaos on your page. There is no earthly point in song. Hope could trip you yet. Our feet spread with age. Still, I wouldn't say that you are wrong. The new chickens. The new chickens eat melon, salmon, steak. They're bred for olive green and porcelain blue eggs, beyond delicious, containing the secret to, what was it? The article I read scared me out of remembering. Some new chickens wear diapers. Children cuddle them indoors at home, where rooms grow larger and hum and become remote. When I was a child, my neighbor kept chickens. He let me stand in their dim, shabby, stinking coop, throwing handfuls of dried corn. Chaos, cacophony, not one missed out ever on the cluck, flutter, rush. Oh, I was a powerful child. The spring equinox, a balancing of lamplight and untethered fact. For the next little while, we must proceed with less and less access to story. The brightest hours will keep the new chickens at our door. Okay, the next section of the book is all based on artwork by a woman named Ludmila Polowska. She was born and raised in Russia, and she lives in Sweden. And she's a sculptor and a painter. She started her career as an iconographer, and she did traditional icons, Russian icons. And then her mother died, and she got into very explosive imagery. And it's still iconic work, though. There's always a pair of eyes staring at you the way they do out of icons. Or there's often a pair of eyes. This first one is called Double Trunk. I'm going to read two of hers. Double Trunk. In the future stands a sculpture where a tree was once a fixture, a two-trunked pine in a forest, greened by rain, grayed by beetles, set ablaze by teenage boys, taunting the Smokey the Bear on the 4th of July. In the future, a double-trunked sculpture born of dreams, born of leaf love. One pillar red, the other gold, a gleam in noonday sun. Through the gold, a jagged cut where the sculptor, a magician, yanked out a hefty chunk of real tree. In the future looms the memory of a large pine killed by beetles and a forest turned to ash by boys whose parents watched and laughed. Next to the glow of red and gold, this chunk of gray, rough, pocked, where microscopic lives could start a world. As the sound of rain increases, a woman locates her dove gray stationery, opens a fountain pen and starts with dear. She knows she'll receive no response. No one corresponds anymore except the dead. No one else has time for handwriting, paragraphs, page numbers, questions about the recipient's well-being, ruminations on various implications, and finally an envelope licked shut, stamped with a bright rectangle of holiday red. Rain will fall heavily on her long, careful walk to the mailbox. Ink will smear. The post office, understaffed, cannot be held responsible for anything. Still, she steps into her clogs and for the sake of beauty, carries her letter into the morning. The lost day. I asked the sky, why hide our sun when you glowered all of yesterday, as well as and before and prior to? Why not rain and have done with yourself? I asked the vast new glassy house, how dare you glare down at the bungalow, its gingerbread and spreading tree? Your little neighbor home squats outside of time. Just wait and see. I asked one side of an old railroad car, who painted that burst of glory? I said, take me to your artist. His name, please, I need her name. But still rain did not fall. Remembering Leonard Cyrano. During one of his episodes, he plucked out his right eye, believing it had caused him to sin. That's how devout the young man was. Afterwards, he could see in the dark. Poetry, sensing the presence of a coffee pot and ashtray that belonged to none other than Leonard, began forming at night, slipping through slapdash insulation and cracks under doors whose weather stripping had peeled away. He'd caress each detail towards completion. The soul needs only one eye. Leonard Cyrano's was made of glass. Plains cottonwoods. Plains cottonwoods own the sky. They have large spirits. They take the necessary time to follow each thought to its unique conclusion, no matter how elusive the path. They nurture many conflicting truths that feed an overall sense of balance and symmetry. They remember. Stand under one in spring if you need to be brushed with sweet nothings. If you need reassurance, go in fall for the curtains of old gold whisper clicks. Try wintering near a fully mature plains cottonwood, dark barked, rough, bare, crooked, gnarled, spherical, if you want to feed your grandchildren on hope. It's pronounced Yahats. Join me here on top of Cape Perpetua. If we have patience, these clouds will relent. Here on fresh moss among sword ferns and maidenhair, spread through a forest of shore pines and spruce, let's listen to the ocean surge and hiss, Watch foam curl over black lava rock through the glisten of greens and grays. See the group of small buildings that seem to have washed in like a rope of seaweed or chunks of glass. Yachats, gem of the Oregon coast. So says a license plate holder in one of the gift shops. Logging's gone under. Motels hang on. Restaurants come and go with the tide. I came and went too, but I've kept two friends, one beach north in a slightly longer town. Like Yachats, it holds routine tsunami drills. My friends are very old. Each lives alone. These two remain pledged to the soft, salty mist that caresses their cheeks, the way nuns persist through the loss of many sisters. This is the title poem, Sufficient Emptiness. Sufficient emptiness. On the winter solstice, between chairs and small tables and mugs of hot cider, chocolate, tea, in a throng of poets plus two young children who belong to this cafe, among quiet strays who follow beauty, a flute waits at the ready, held by a tall, shaggy silence. His face defines true north. He has absolutely bare feet. On the winter solstice, I listen, wait, rise, my book in my hand. His accompaniments on offer. I stand not overly close, pace each phrase with care to allow him sufficient emptiness. His response holds both issue and ancestor. It holds love lost until now. Look at these cafe children sitting still in a peculiar calm. This hour reveals an entrance to the trail of crumbs. To an atheist in a spiritual crisis. You pace wrench gray office carpet, formulating questions about the impact of art on the real world. Your cubicle remains on the 9th floor. Ceiling tiles inhale your every utterance, while you cast glances like nets into the swimming street. You fax a few misplaced apostrophes in my direction. Such vulnerability to a virtual stranger. Next time I hold a conch shell to my ear, I will listen for your voice. Although her elusiveness gone, this newest email states that she'll replace my lost shipment. She acknowledges the address change I mentioned last June. Although, she needles, such mention wasn't made until the end of my note. Just a bit later, I apologize appears before regards. Now the empty space following her name. Emptiness billows from who knows where, a kind of sorrow that fills the room, managing to hold and suspend the parcel she'd driven with similar ones to the post office. Crowded, most likely, very slow that afternoon, its long counter down to one clerk. Coexistence. A philodendron comes on like a lamp as late winter sun turns a corner of this house. Such deep light, some of it must begin inside the leaves. Across the room, a piano waits. It wants to let out a sonata, possibly blues, perhaps jazz. Maybe Mary Had a Little Lamb. Those leaves are hands, long-fingered, engaged with the quiet living room air, which wouldn't mind a burst of music or a drift of fog up against a corner window. The north side. This is for a friend who died of glioblastoma. He was one of those people who never even got a cold. And then shortly after he retired, he got glioblastoma and he died within a year. It really tore me up. And his name is Jim Norley. Jim, may your day begin with the dazzle of a grassy field during soft spring rain. May your need for this world bend like a Sitka spruce grown accustomed to ocean winds. So many wish you solid again, some younger, some much older, each of us a mere tulip. May you circle behind a sequoia's trunk, enter the sparkling hush of this season's moss. The north side, where always you seemed most at home, given your family name and almost ethereal patience. End of the line. Gold miners lie buried here, their minds exhausted. My husband and I amble in trembling grass. We find an old boxcar made into a dwelling, abandoned to trembling light. Everything has been invented and used up. No train will arrive to wheel anyone home. But this tracks come somehow alive in its rust. We're no longer taking a walk. It's taking us. Okay. I'm going to read two more. The first is Poem Without Color. If I must choose between rain and snow on an almost windless afternoon, I'll pick flakes like these that bounce up, down, sideways, open to chance. Between drizzle and a dither of dry flakes, I'll go with the wet, which knows what it's doing. I've seen a lot of rain. It has earned my trust. Between winter weather and a head full of fog, I choose another 40 years to make something out of nothing with my love close by. Myth. Myth is the unlit water where bottom feeders flutter. Myth's the fish that scatter when approached by a diver, the sunken treasure rumor passed from father to son, and before that, mother to daughter. Just ask the hag who likes to recount her glimpse of Aphrodite aboard the seashell, dripping with pearls. Many smarties claim that myth is a lie. Their claim bobs and sinks, it gets digested. But myth's an extensive, peculiar fact, which in the telling develops a soul. Grief is feeling the need to explain. Come, sister, come, brother, let's walk by the river. Thanks. Okay, Stith.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Marjorie.
you, Marjorie. That was great.
Woo, it's
Thank you
fantastic.
so much.
Thank you.
Boy, you packed a lot
My
in.
new favorite word is cantanker.
What?
My new favorite word
Or is
is
cantanker the
cantanker.
verb, as a verb, right?
Oh, I
Yeah.
love it. It's just super. I'm going to cantanker a little bit later.
Indeed. Well, you know, that was just really great. And you know, we want to remind everybody that we've got questions. And one of the things you could do for the questions is to raise your hand like this, put it out
your
here
hand up.
so we can see it. And then Christine will call on you. She's the Zoom master here. All right. So anybody that has any questions, comments, whatever, just raise your hand. And okay, looks like Shannon is.
Okay, Shannon. And just a reminder too that we're recording. So if you don't want your face shown, you can always just nix your video and stay on the call. But okay, Shannon, we'd love to hear your question for Marjorie.
I'm sorry, Marjorie. I don't have a question. I'm just trying to help my mother who is here. Her name is Gail Goldenmore.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't know how to turn her audio on. You can
Oh,
see
I'm
her there
sorry.
talking, and I didn't want to keep interrupting. So
Okay.
I
The reading is being recorded. So she can watch that. She can watch the recording once it's up. I can send it to her as something to post.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm
Just-
sorry. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Sure.
Gail, do you want to unmute yourself and share your question? That lower left button.
Yeah, you're still muted.
Oh dear.
Let's see if I can find it.
Gail, we can't hear you.
Yeah. Yes. Gail, could you unmute yourself?
All right,
There we go.
Great. That's wonderful.
Great, perfect.
I can't do this very well. Did I interfere with the reading? I'm
You're fine.
You're fine.
very concerned.
Did you want to share a
I
question
didn't.
or a response for
I'm
Marjorie?
gonna try to, no, I missed a lot of it, and what I heard just the last one was absolutely beautiful, Marjorie. Absolutely thrilling and enthralling, and I'm sorry that I missed it. I wish that I could have heard the whole, apparently I
Well,
came
thank
very
you.
late.
We are
It's
recording
been
it, so-
recorded, so you will get to hear the recording.
All right,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reassured. Thank you.
Claudia?
Claudia,
I just wanted to say it's so great to see you, Marjorie, and hear you read your poetry. Your poetry is unique to you, and your voice is unique to you. And I'm thrilled to have you come out with your fourth book. So it's just, I'm just happy to be here and be able to see you and hear your voice.
yeah.
That's all.
Thank you. I'm
Thank
glad
you,
you
Claudia.
came.
It's Ira.
Ira,
Yes, thank you for being here and sharing your artwork. And Christine and Steph, thank you for arranging this gathering. My question for Marjorie, this being your fourth book, I wonder, how do you know when you have a book? How do you decide, or what is the feeling, what is the thought process for you to say, okay, it's these number of pieces and this shall be the book, and I see the title pop off from, I don't know, I'm speculating, from one of the poems. So how do you know if you're halfway to the book or a quarter way to the book, or if you're ready for publishing?
I never know if I'm halfway or a quarter way. I just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like something comes over me. And I start putting the poems together. Sometimes I spread them out. And then I just start coming up with an order for them. And that's open to change for a while. But I get very intense and I don't talk much. I'm just kind of absorbed and obsessed, really. I get obsessed with it. And I put it together pretty quickly. I don't slave over it. I mean, some people spend years and years and years fussing with their book. I don't do that. I just do it in a big swoop. I don't think that's how you're supposed to. You're probably not taught to do it that way. Nobody ever taught me what to do as far as putting a book together.
Well, I think few of us are taught how to put a book together. I think that's something that every writer, poet probably comes to on their own. And so I was curious what your process was. When you say you lay them out, I'm imagining, do you have a dining room table, or do you have your pieces on the floor? And before you begin this process, are there pieces that are, let's call it, residing in a notebook that is handwritten, and then there are pieces that you have typed, and then are you typing up the handwritten, like how do you gather together those pieces that you're putting in sequence and that eventually becomes a
I
book?
don't have a particular place where I spread them out. It changes because I've moved a lot and I don't have very much space anymore. But I didn't put this book together in my current home. I put it together in my last home, which also didn't have very much space. And I don't remember, I think I spread them out on the floor of we had a guest room there, and that's where I spread them out. And they were all typed.
All right.
Do you do much revision? And I apologize, I'll let go of the microphone. Do you do much, when you've gathered the poems together and you're putting them in a sequence, do you wind up revising or rewriting any of those selections?
Yeah, so I call it tweaking. I don't do major revision at that point, but I tweak them.
Okay.
Little bit of revision.
Okay, well, thank you. This is helpful to hear about your process, and I hand the mic over to the next person. Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Ira.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Ira.
Ira. Channing. Channing. Yeah.
Channing. Marjorie, I absolutely love the title of this book. And it was intriguing to me. I'm glad you read the poem, but for days I've been pondering it. It's reflective on its own. And it's like different things come in, and it's for a discussion for another day. But I have a question, a really tough question, I think. And that is, can you address at all your process of writing a poem? Yeah. Or maybe not. I mean, for a way. Can you tell us anything?
I guess I start with a feeling of that I'm getting scattered, that I'm getting into my head too much and I'm getting scattered and I don't know quite where my center is anymore. And I hate that feeling. So I sit down and I start writing whatever comes to mind. Usually there's an image that comes pretty quickly, and then I can go along with that, make a poem out of it. Sometimes though, I don't have an image. I just have that scattered feeling. And if the feeling is really bad, I write in a traditional form that time. Because if you're writing in a traditional form, you feel more grounded, I think, and some of the work is already done for you. Because you've got restrictions then. And so that's also how I often get started if I've had a dry spell. I don't call it writer's block. I just have spells when I'm not writing and feel like starting again.
Are you one of these poets who has flashes and writes has notebooks of potential subjects, that kind of thing?
I used to. I don't tend to remember anything long enough to do that anymore. But sometimes, yeah, I'll overhear a piece of a conversation and I write that down as fast as I can. I eavesdrop and I use people's conversations. Yeah.
Thank you.
George, you had your hand up earlier.
Raleigh, I go by my middle name.
Oh, Raleigh.
The questions that I was going to ask have now been asked in slightly different ways, but I got the information I was looking for, which was about the writing process.
Looks like Alan.
Alan.
It's great to be here. I love Marjorie's poetry, and I think that so many of the pieces connect to me in very personal ways. I guess my question is, are there some of the poems that seem more personal, more to your core than others, whereas others are more abstract?
Yes, they do. And I didn't read some of the most personal ones because it would make me cry. There's one about my mother early in the book that makes me cry if I read it out loud. And then the one about Jim Norley, that sort of elegy poem, that sometimes makes me cry. So I almost didn't read that, but I figured I could probably get through it. If I'm writing about someone who's either very ill or has died recently, those are really personal for me, because it always seems like after somebody dies, that person's presence just saturates me.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's part of the grieving process. It's a way of keeping them with you or something.
Yeah.
But if I've written a poem and I'm still feeling too close to that grief, then I would never read it in a reading. And it may be one of my favorite poems too. So.
Marjorie, I had a question about your endings. I just find your voice in particular to be amazing for how your poems can your endings are often just full of surprise. There's sort of a zap there and sometimes a key. I mean, there's so many different things you hit with your closings in your poems. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about kind of how you work with that. You know, some people have a hard time knowing when their poem is done or if they should expand it or that kind of thing. But whenever I read your work, I just feel like you kind of know, you just have this sense toward those surprising endings. But when you're writing and when you're feeling into it, what's your approach? What do you feel?
Oh, with endings? I think I like to open the poem up to going into another world than the world it's already been in. I like to open up the next step for the reader and for myself too. The next vista, the next thought, the next experience, the next whatever. And I'm glad you like it, because people have complained about that to me. They've said, you know, you ended this poem with something that had nothing to do with the poem. Or, hey, that's a different poem. You're starting a different poem with that ending. Well, so what? You know, I want to go somewhere else now once I'm done with something. And I think I'm not a very patient person sometimes. If somebody's going on and I feel like they could have ended this by now, if they're just talking or if they're reading or if they're explaining something and basically they've done it, then I just want them to stop.
Move on.
And I get to do that if it's my poem.
Yeah.
Amen.
There you go.
I love it.
Poetic empowerment.
I love it. Yeah, poetic license. We'll print up a poetic license for you. Annette, do you want to share a question? And if you can unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, please.
Let's see, it's the lower left corner.
Got it now?
Okay.
She got it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've got it. From what you just said, Marjorie, I get the feeling that you start writing with what you know and write into what you don't know, which is what hooked me on poetry myself years ago, because I would have this glimmer of something. And then sort of as I wrote, I discovered more things that I felt knew, wanted to know about, and they developed in the course of writing the poem. I get the feeling that's what you're saying to a certain degree, what you just said. Am I right? Am I close?
Yes, you are. You got it.
It's a fascinating process, isn't it?
It is. And it's humbling, I think.
Yeah, you have no idea where it's headed.
Yeah, and you have to honor that. You have to honor what the poem wants to do. It's not just your poem after a while. It's sort of like you're in its hands.
Well, I've always liked that about you, your work. And I wrote the literary criticism for Marjorie's first book And it wound up on the cover page of a publication for editors of literary magazines. And so
I
it was
still
pretty
have
nice.
Yes, I do.
Do you? I'm sure I have a copy of it too. That was very nice. So it's wonderful to hear you read. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Am I muted again or muted or what am I?
Gail,
Can you hear
you're
me?
free.
You're fine. We can hear you.
Yep.
Okay. I think that many really, really fine poets like Marjorie will can end a poem completely what seems like irrelevant to the body of the poem. Who was it? Lorca does. I love the sea, not the shore, or I love the palm, not the willow, and it seems like just separate, but it isn't separate. It's all incorporated. It's all a part and a piece. The poem and the body of the poem picks that up too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not extraneous at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to go back to that. I think we passed that, but that was my response.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I finally got. I can think. It's just that I can't do this. So.
I can mute you again. Yeah. Thank you, Gail. Yeah.
Channing.
That's exactly what it feels like. Channing, did you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to continue on this, Christine, when you brought that up and about the endings. I've known Marjorie now for 50 years, and that element of surprise has always been a thrill. It's always the unexpected, and I can't wait to get the book, because when I think back on this reading now, I loved. I found myself waiting with each poem. I wonder what she's going to do at the end of this. And it takes you. To me, it's not that I know you, but it's so you. It's like, okay, here we go. You know, it's the unexpected, and it just brings me all the further in.
Oh.
And bravo that you're free to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
There are a lot of poems that you read today that I popped my head, but it wasn't through anything other than thrill. You know, it's like, hey, here she goes. So, more when I read the book.
Well, here is that book, by the way. Deerbrook Editions, right? That's what it looks like. And
I'll type in the chat here. Yeah, dear.
Okay. And while Christine is typing, I've got a question that maybe you could amplify for people. If I turn in this book, there it is, to the section 3, it says the eyes, an ekphrastic sequence. What is ekphrastic?
Ekphrastic is writing that's based on, or poetry that's based on other art forms and inspired by other art forms. And you're supposed to stick pretty close to whatever it is you're writing about, whatever's in the painting, whatever is in the sculpture. You can do them on dance. I've seen ekphrastic poetry after someone has observed a dance performance. So that's what it is. I don't know whether mine are technically totally ekphrastic, because I take off on my own after a while, even when I'm staying close to the piece of art. But okay.
Raleigh.
I've done a lot of poems based on paintings, not just this woman, but for a long time I've written poems inspired by paintings.
It's pretty rich, yeah, to do that, I feel like. And I love where you went with the 2 that you read based on
Thanks.
Was it the Russian sculptor and painter? Yeah.
Yeah.
Raleigh.
Yes, Marjorie. Congratulations on the book. I loved your reading. Would you talk a little bit about how you got started writing poetry? What moved you to begin doing this? And Was it difficult to get started or did it come naturally?
Well, it came naturally. I kind of thought I was a writer when I was 8 because my older brother told me I was probably a born writer, and he had achieved some acclaim for his writing. He died when he was 19 in a car accident.
Oh,
And that was really rough for me. But I remember, and my mother always thought he was the writer, among other things she thought he was. And my father too. So it was like the writer had died in the family. That was the atmosphere in the home. And but I remembered, he told me one day, as if it was a secret between us, that I was a born writer. It was sort of like, don't tell the parents. And I hung on to that, and I started writing little vignettes, and I loved writing in school. I wrote vignettes and stories, and then when I was a teenager and getting depressed and confused, I started writing poetry. It wasn't very good, but I wrote it, and I stayed with that. And no, it wasn't hard, but I mean, that was because I didn't know it should be hard. You get taught that you have to know this and that and the other thing, and then it seems really hard. But this was before I knew all those things. So.
Channing.
I have to address this because Marjorie and I were roommates in college, and I just have to take issue with her word that it wasn't very good. It was fabulous. I loved it, and I knew nothing about poetry till I met. And it's true. I really mean this. And you used to read your poetry to me, and you were at it, and you were really at it. Yes, you were. And you had a book next, a notebook next to your bed. And it was something that was upon you. And I knew this about you from then on. And we were, 19 at that time?
Yeah, I don't remember sharing any poetry with you. I thought it was a big secret. I don't remember that.
No, you did. And you did, and you read it. And they were often quite short at the time and terribly personal. And it was wonderful. So that was wonderful. And I remember them to this day, not the content. So I wanted to establish that.
Oh,
thank you. Thank you.
That's so beautiful. Richard.
Yes. Hi, Marjorie. I was curious about the title of the book, Sufficient Emptiness. And I was wondering if it referred to the Buddhist concept of emptiness.
I would think it does because of the experience in the title poem. This flautist, the man playing the flute, was uncanny in how well he picked up on people's poetry. Somebody would read a line or a phrase or a couple of lines, and then he would respond on the flute, and it was amazing. He had just gotten it that fast. He'd gotten the feeling of that line so quickly and so deeply. And so when it was my turn, I felt it was important to put a lot of space between us, just to make sure that he had plenty of room to do his own thing when I was reading. I mean, some people may have felt otherwise. They may have wanted to get really close to him physically so that they would be paired with him, but I didn't feel that. I felt that he needed his space. And that if I didn't give him that, then it wasn't going to work out very well.
Yeah, I love that. There's some sensibility of trust. There's some kind of like artistic space of trust. It sounds like in that poem and in that sense.
He plays, by the way, at the Mercury Cafe in Denver on Sunday nights. He plays for poets.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you should get there sometime. You could be one of the poets reading and have him do it for you.
That'd be fun.
You'll never recover. I invited him to this, and he said he would try to come.
Oh, it'd be fun to try over Zoom. Yeah, we could try that over Zoom sometime.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that event you mentioned at the Mercury Cafe.
Oh,
The flutist I think you referred to is part of a band that plays from 6:30 to 8:30
mhm.
in the jungle room, the large room off
Yeah.
of the main dining
Yeah.
room. And there's a band that will change usually from Sunday to Sunday with flute, guitar, bass, sometimes percussionist, sometimes two, sometimes traditional drummer, drum set. And the name of the band is Art Compost and the Word Mechanics.
Yeah.
So
That's
you can
it.
have a band behind you as you read, or you can turn your poem into something rhythmic. And I've been aware of this and have enjoyed it for some time. So, and there's no cover charge. They might have a jar where they ask for donations. But it's a wonderful event. And then after, lately now, they have an open mic at 8:30. So you can perform with the band and then do your own work at the open mic.
Mhm.
So I'm just some lovely things to be aware of happening in Denver every Sunday.
Yeah, that's
And
fantastic.
I'll plug something, if you'll forgive me. I play piano there from 5 to about 6:30 or 7 in their main dining room.
Hmm.
I play with a violinist named John Fodor, who's a
Cool.
wonderful violinist, and I get the opportunity to back him up, and then he'll take breaks, and I'll do solo piano. And that's in
Cool.
the main dining room, and there's no coverage charge. And all the food at the Mercury Cafe is organic. I'm
Mhm.
gonna mute myself. I appreciate your patience and listening.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ira. No, that's awesome. The Mercury Cafe is just a
Right.
really magical, special place.
Right. And local, as a matter of fact, not just organic, but local.
Yeah.
Yeah, locally sourced.
Yeah.
And the Mercury Cafe is going to go through a transition. It's going to be under the leadership of some unknown new folks here very soon. And so it's sort of the end of the era there for Maryland. She's done an amazing thing over the years. It's a special place.
Oh, that's neat. Gail, did you want to chime in again?
Yeah, I don't have.
You have to unmute again. You muted yourself.
Yeah, you muted yourself. Just unmute.
There we go.
I
Perfect.
just wanted to go back to the phrase extratic, where
Ekphrastic.
you combine art forms. I'm reading Anna Karenina again for the 8th time. I love it. And they're having some discussion, Oblonsky, I think it's Oblonsky, about that they should combine all art forms, make one thing, poems and music and painting and everything. And I was shocked. I never had, I thought that was a terrible idea, but maybe it's not a terrible idea. Maybe would be a lot better off if I tried that. Maybe my mind is just closed. And so I wanted to ask you what you think about that, Marjorie, that idea of combining poetry with, what's her name? The one that sang at the inaugural. I mean, that would be awful.
I'm not sure what you mean by combine it with.
Well, I'm not either. Including art, mixing art, blending art forms together. Maybe that's a better way of putting it, even though that might not be the way to put it either.
Marjorie, you and I did a collaboration.
Tell us more.
Remember the collaboration that you and I did?
Oh, yeah. That we did. That was a collaboration.
That was a visual with poetry.
That was fun.
Yeah.
But that's like Walt Whitman.
I have that on my wall upstairs.
What?
Alan, framed.
Am I muted again, or I'm unmuted? Okay. That's all. My only question was that what you think of that, of doing that. And apparently you do it because you do it. Apparently you think it's okay.
Yeah, Alan and I did a poster. Isn't that what you would call it, Alan? It was a poster?
Yeah, it was a piece of artwork that I did, and then I asked you to do a poem about it.
Yes.
And it became eventually a poster that was reproduced. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. This thing you're talking about happens all the time at the Blue Marmot gatherings and some other things that I've been involved with. It's quite common to see poetry and music and dance and live painting, for example, all happening
all at once.
Yeah, so simultaneously, kind of synesthesically, you might say.
That's sort of what I was thinking now that we've got Zoom and we can have programs where we can see and hear each other. It would be really fascinating to have some music and then poetry and some more music and have some, wouldn't that be a nice program? I think it would be nice. It sounds interesting to me, especially after hearing musicians talk about their work. And I've seen combinations of art and poetry too, where I participated in a show where I had a poem to go with a piece of artwork. But yeah, the music and poetry would be fascinating. Don't know what that would be like.
Annette, when we get back with the Blue Marmot gatherings, you need to somehow or another get yourself up to
Colorado,
8,500, 9,000 feet of the Rocky Mountains.
Well,
and, you can see this happen. Yeah. All right.
We were going to come up there and see Marjorie and Max, and they laughed.
Don't take it personally, Annette.
I know you move a lot, but I wasn't ready, Marjorie. Well, this has been marvelous.
It's great.
Wonderful.
We're coming up here now on 6:30. It's like that would be about an hour and good slug of Zoom time. It's better to leave the audience wanting more than to just drag on. I've noticed that about Zooms. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time.
But we could take, I mean, if we have one or two more questions.
Okay, if somebody have another question, maybe we should wrap up.
One or two
though.
more questions and anything else you want to? Judith?
Judy, you're muted. She's muted.
Can you unmute yourself?
Muted.
Mute. Okay. Am I
There.
unmuted? Oh, good.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
I loved the one about your mother, just because I feel like I sort of knew your parents a little bit. And I can't believe we haven't seen each other since 11 years old. Is that how old we were?
Wow.
11 or 12, yeah.
I mean, and you know how sentimental I am about Hadley Cashmere and the wonderful barn in Stamford where you grew up. I mean, I was so impressionable. And I just feel like I've seen you much more frequently since I was 11 years old. But anyhow, the one about your mother just the Puccini, it's called. That really grabs me. I mean, just because I can see she was the kind of person that would listen for that on the radio. And, I can see her walking down Fifth Avenue or wherever she was shopping. She just seems that kind of woman to me. And I was always very impressed with her and your father. And it's just so weird, isn't it, that we're now, and also our birth date was mentioned in that poem. So I loved that. It was something about 7. And Marjorie and I are birthday twins.
She and I share a birthday.
Yeah, we're Halloween babies and 47. So it's just so weird that we're so old, and this is just seeing you for the first time in years and years and years. So I hope.
I know. I'm on the East Coast now.
I know. I love that idea. I love Rochester.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, congratulations. And I have all the copies that you sent me, and they've gone off to sisters' birthdays, and I'm saving one for a Christmas present, and I love it.
Thank you.
Keep writing. I liked 7 Parts of Woman as well.
Thanks.
Yeah. Awesome.
It was lovely to see you, Marjorie.
Yes, it was wonderful to see everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming. And we just really appreciate you coming out to support Marjorie. And I put the links in the chat where you can get her book.
Great.
Got it.
Thank
Right.
you. I
Okay.
don't see my chat, but that's okay.
Mhm.
Oh, there's the chat. Let's see.
I think it came out in your
Okay,
announcement, didn't
yeah.
it, Marjorie?
What?
The-
Yeah, now I see it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the link was in Marjorie's email too. So if you missed the
Yeah,
chat here.
so yeah, I've got it
her
right here in my
email.
hand. So that's great. I'm gonna get it right away. So is it out now? Is it available
Yeah.
now?
Mhm.
It's available now.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
It's available from the press and also from small press distribution in Berkeley. And you might get it faster from them since you're on the West Coast.
Okay. Well, it's too bad I can't have you sign it.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
if you want to wait a while, I can order some more. The ones I have left are all spoken for. I don't have very many left,
Okay.
but if you want to wait a few weeks.
Well, I wouldn't mind. Yeah, it'd be
Okay.
wonderful to have your book and have a note from you in it.
Okay,
I'd love
yeah,
that. Yeah, let me know.
okay, I will.
All right. Thanks, everybody. It was great seeing
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Go in peace.
Bye-bye.
I really enjoyed
Thank
it.
you,
Thanks so
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Marjorie.
Christine.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Marjorie.
Enjoyed it.
Yes.
Bye-bye. What do I
Have a
do
good
now?
night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie.
I don't
Thanks.
know.
Bye
I don't
bye.
know.
With me, and I loved it. Thank you.
Okay.